Okay, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you this morning. It is morning, isn't it? I still tell people I'll see you on Monday. Still have those days sometimes. So anyway, I want to just jump right into our program this morning. We're certainly pleased to have Sandeep here, and I know I always talk to him, and he's so dang busy. But I want to just go ahead and I think all of you know who Sandeep is. You've probably seen him on this call one or more times, but we are certainly pleased to have him be a part of our meeting today. So with that, Sandeep, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you do your thing. And did you want to share your screen?
Update. I just want to know everyone about where we are in the planning phase and our current deadline and everything else.
Okay, well, you're on, Sandeep. So, if you need to share, I've just turned off my sharing. So,
okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Steve, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Sandeep Bhowmik, State Broadband Director here at Arizona Commerce Authority. So as you already probably know that last month we published on August 22nd our 5-year action plan. It's posted on our website. So 5-year action plan is the main milestone, one of the first milestone of the $1 billion funding state has received. So we have 3 milestones to complete before, actually 4 milestones to complete before we access this fund. Number 1 was 5-year milestone, 5-year action plan. Second one is the initial plan that's due on December 27th this year. Then the challenge process, and the final plan will be due based on when initial plan is getting approved 365 days after that. So if we submit the initial plan at the end of this year and NTIA takes approximately 90 days to approve, in that case, the final plan will be due on March 2025-ish. So somewhere between beginning of 2025 to end of 2020, March 2025. So I do understand that some of you might have question about the process. Before even we access this funding, we have to make sure that we are submitting all the requirements asked by NTIA or as per the guideline, because definitely IIJA is a signed bill and we need to fulfill this requirement before we access the money. So as I mentioned in the initial plan, we are in the initial plan phase right now. So initial plan it's a little bit more technical and more strategical instead of like just talking broadband in an overview. So initial plan has 2 different volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 1 talks about that how state, there are 2 types of challenge process. One is the federal challenge process we went through last year. And the challenge process we are talking about right now is the state challenge process. That means if you go to FCC map and now you actually pull out your community and you see, even though an address, it doesn't have to be in community, an address, and you see that the provider claimed a certain speed which is not exactly right for your community, you'd be able to submit a challenge to the state, and a state will take that data, evaluate, and send it directly to the providers, and then provider will have 30 days to submit a rebuttal against that challenge. If provider does not submit a rebuttal or the evidence they submit is not good enough, then we'll open up those areas for BEAD funding. I just want to clarify one thing. That doesn't change anything on the funding end. To give you an example, we have 318,000 households right now, approximately. We need to cover with reliable broadband services with this $1 billion. So if we add another 5,000 addresses, 10,000 addresses on top of that, we are still liable to connect all these households within this $1 billion. So it does not change anything funding wise, but it gives you an opportunity equally participate into the BEAD funding if your area was treated as served, but actually it's not served based on the speed, based on the latency, based on the uplink and downlink. So that's the challenge process. So state is coming up with a proposal that what exactly is eligible for the challenge process. That's part of volume 1. And another very important part of the volume 1, and I would like to thank you, a few folks here in this call who already sent us the their database of community anchor institute. So one of the very crucial part of volume 2 is list of community anchor institute. It doesn't have to be all community anchor institute. It's the community anchor institute which is lacking less than 1 gig symmetrical. So what we are doing, we took the list of community categories of the community anchor institute from the NTIA guideline, which includes schools, libraries, higher education institute, health center, state and locally owned buildings. Sorry, let me have a quick look. State and local owned building, public safety facilities, employment center, senior center, and correctional facilities for state of Arizona. We're making a master database so that we can actually publish at some point this information into our state broadband map, as well as we are running an algorithm right now that any fiber line goes within 500 feet of those facilities. We're considering them served with 1 gig symmetrical. Probably there is not available connectivity right now based on price or based on other factor or based on the business plan the company is offering, but we are basically considering them served because there is an availability. That's the NTI guideline. So we'll be publishing a list of the whole community anchor institute we are putting together, as well as what is served, what is unserved, what is underserved. So that's volume 1. We are hoping the volume 1 requires, both volume requires a 30-day public comment period. We are hoping to publish volume 1 beginning of October, probably first week of October, and it will be open for public comment for 30 days. In between this public comment period, we'll keep working, adding community anchor institute. And if you go through that list and you feel or you see any list or any schools, colleges, libraries are missing from that list, feel free to submit it through our portal of public comments, or you can directly email it to us. We'll be adding that as part of this community anchor institute list. Also, there is a NTIA review process involved in this process, so it can all go parallel. Before we submit to NTIA higher ups to review this whole thing, we can go back and forth with the technical assistance team to see what exactly is the particular thing we can talk about Arizona in that plan. The volume 2 is more extensive. There are 25 requirements in volume 2, which includes workforce development plan, climate resiliency, what's our plan for sub-grantee selection process, etc., etc. The sub-grantee selection process is the heart of volume 2. 70 out of 100%, 75% requirement is coming from NTIA. So as a state, we only have 25% to play with. So it's kind of up to us that what we can cram in within that 25%. Of course, that's a very limited percentage for the states. We have to be creative, and we have to make sure that whatever we are assigning right next to those categories, what we are selecting, are meaningful. So that will also be published for public comment at the end of, I think, beginning of November, and it will be open for 1 month of public comment until end of November. In the beginning of December, we'll add all this public comment or address this public comment into the report and submit both of this volume to NTIA by December 26th. So that's the overall update I have. That's the short-term goal I have before we roll into the challenge process. Oh, just wanted to add that if for some reason we miss community anchor institute in this phase 2, like in volume 1, you can still submit those as a challenge process during the challenge process time, beginning of next year. What we are defining in volume 1 right now is how we are going to run the challenge process, not the exact challenge process. The challenge process will open next year, approximately end of February or March timeframe, and it will be open for 90 days. So it's a little bit flexible. I don't want to call it flexible, but it's a little bit flexible on our side. We need to run the challenge process before we submit the final plan, which is due end of 2024. But we are making sure from our side that our counties, cities, nonprofit organizations, ISPs are all ready to submit that challenge process, because once we open up that 90-day window, we have to accept the challenge and execute it. So it's definitely a daunting task. So we are making sure that we know what's coming on our way and communities are ready. So that's the the overall update. I'd be happy to take any question.
Okay. Questions for Sandy?
Sandeep, I have a question, and it's not regarding what you just talked about with the bead, but more the high cost areas. And
Sure.
where can we get a map of those? Because I'm really looking to help people with the ACP program in my areas.
Of course. So Heather, as part of the one thing I forgot to mention, as part of the volume 1 and volume 2, we will be publishing these maps. So in underserved and unserved and high cost areas. So this will be public information very soon. I don't know as an ISP if you have an access to the high cost area. Probably not, but feel free to email the CostQuest folk and see if they can give it to you. I don't think so. I strongly feel you don't have access, but this all information will be public information pretty soon as part of the initial plan.
Wonderful. Thank you. I thought I was missing something. Apparently not.
Other questions for Sandy?
Yeah, I have one. So Sandy, on the just following what Heather was saying, so don't ISPs have to kind of sign on or agree for that extra $75 per customer? I mean, it's not just an easy, like, I'm going in and, I mean, how do we, what are we doing with ISPs who aren't agreeing to cover that, or, you know, to cover that cost?
Great question, Elena. Yes, you are absolutely right. For the high cost areas, ISPs need to go ahead and submit a request and get approved for those areas and their coverage areas to get that $75. It's not automatic like any other ACP project. I have the link. I can send it to you, and Heather, I can send it to you all too. And Steve, I'll send it to you too so that you can distribute. Sure. But ISPs have to agree with certain terms and conditions before even they accept that funding.
Thank you. That'll be helpful.
So Karen just put into the chat a link about the high cost areas. And Karen,
Thanks,
I don't know
Karen.
if you want to comment on that while you're at it.
No, I was just going to say there's some information on the NTIA site that is public information regarding the high cost area, but it isn't the map with the addresses. Sandeep said that is not publicly available yet.
Okay. Any other questions? Karen, do you want to add anything to what Sandeep has already talked about this morning?
I think he did a pretty good job covering everything. The only thing I was going to add is that they are interviewing for the digital equity manager here, I think next week. And he just texted me and said his computer just shut off, so he's going to try to get back on. So they do have some candidates for the digital equity program manager, and they're doing some interviews, so we're hoping to get that person, you know, up and on board here pretty quick.
Great. I know you guys can definitely use the help.
Yes.
So anything else, Karen, with the broadband office that you want to share?
Like I said, I think that's it right now, unless anybody has any additional questions.
Okay. So Karen, just a reminder, and I had talked to Sandeep about this. I think you guys were drafting some kind of a notice about the getting input for the excuse me, for the different for all the different I'm having a brain fart here this morning. Well, I'll come back to it anyway. So the other thing is that, and I've talked a little bit with Karen and Sandeep, that I would like for us to schedule a couple of sessions to go over the plan and not just talk about the process. So we've heard a lot of stuff about process, and Sandeep's talked about it again this morning. But really, the plan is available. If you haven't seen it, there is a link that I've been sending out with the link to the plan, and certainly encourage you to look at the plan and provide them any feedback. And then, like I said, I would like for us to do maybe a couple of sessions, with the first part being an overview of what's in the plan today, and get any input from you besides just going online. If you have any more questions about the plan or want to provide feedback, or whatever. So I'm going to be working with them to kind of figure out how we're going to make that happen and so forth. So I don't know, Karen, if you have anything more you want to add about that.
No, I think, Steve, but it's part of the overall stakeholder engagement and outreach plan that ACA is putting together. Sandeep is going to be on PTO here for the first couple of weeks of October, but then after that, he's going to be on the road. And they are scheduling multiple, visits in counties and local governments, to just socialize all of the plans and, the volume 1 and 2, and just, engage with our stakeholders, ISPs, nonprofits, government entities to let them know what's coming in the next year. So I think the AZBSN meeting is another one of our stakeholder engagements that we'll set up to provide that information.
Sounds great. So what I was asking about was the anchor institutions. If you have a description, I think Sandeep said you guys were going to develop some kind of a brief. This is what it is. This is the link, and so forth. So we can send that out, and people can actually understand what you're looking for. And I know that NTIA has kind of provided that kind of background, but it would be helpful to have a succinct paragraph that I can include in our emails.
So, Karen, feel free to share our the strategies we developed for the Community Anchor Institute and the data sources and everything with Steve, so that he can send it out. I just want to clarify one thing: the Community Anchor Institutes are definitely important for Volume 1, but the $1 billion we are basically responsible to cover the 318,000 households, or any households we are adding during the challenge process. And then the leftover money goes into Community Anchor Institute. So at this point, whatever we are collecting to make sure that we have an idea that how many Community Anchor Institute we have here in the state. And later on, a financial study will define that what Community Anchor Institute will be serving with the leftover money. Sorry, Karen. Sorry for interruption. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Sandeep, and we were trying to make sure that, we level set, the discussion regarding the community anchor institutions, and, just letting people know, because it makes it to the list does not necessarily mean it's going to get funded. There's a NTIA has their defined list, but we still are required to have 100% coverage of those unserved and underserved locations first. And if you just do the simple math, 993 million divided by the 318,000 or more, depending on what happens with the challenge process, you can clearly see that there's not going to be enough to have fiber to every one of those locations. And so we are now working with our with all the data that we have to determine where that break point is from fiber to another technology, and figuring out through the financial analysis of the best way to cover those 318,000 first. So if there's any money left over, it will probably be very limited, but we're, like I said, we're not we don't want to put the expectation out there that there will be, funding, a great deal of funding for these community anchor institutions.
So Karen, I think I asked you this last time, and maybe you or Sandy can provide some clarification. When we've talked about anchor institutions, we've often considered them talking about to and through. Being able, so it's not just we're trying to connect those organizations, but how they can also then extend their networks out to other people. Where does that fit into where we are when we talk about anchor institutions? Again, as you pointed out, Karen, that there's only so much money. So in terms of looking at priorities, is that going to be a criteria that we need to look at?
That is a good question. I think I'm going to send that one to Sandeep. In my opinion, if there is any money left over, or if that particular community anchor institution is required to get to somewhere else, that would be a consideration. Sandeep, is that right?
Yes, and I agree with you, Karen. But also, if you look at the guideline, whatever Karen said on top of that, if you look at the NTI guideline, there are some deployment categories. Like if we have some money left over, which is really not going to be the case for state of Arizona, but if there is at the end of the day, then those non-deployable costs are not even like. I was very surprised that middle mile was not even involved into that thing. Basically, those monies are for workforce development, cybersecurity, mostly digital equity related activities out from that funding. So to give you an example, if suppose so out of this $993 million, 5% actually goes towards the program administration for until 2030 and beyond, because if someone is finishing a project in 2030 and we need to monitor it for another 1 year or so it goes beyond like 2030, 2031, something like that. So that 5% is right there. And then rest, we have to make sure that we are covering all these 318,000 addresses. And as Karen mentioned, probably more, using this leftover money. And there would be a break-even point for wireless. There would be a break-even point for satellite, like based on the technology, based on our need. There are addresses here in Arizona which might take like $500,000 to connect. So it does not leave us with so many choices, but all I can tell you, these programs right after the deployment, once you meet your deployment need, are mostly going to be digital equity related program, because it was only $2.75 billion which was allocated for digital equity for whole country and the US territories. So it would be good to spend some money on that side, but I don't strongly feel that we're in that luxury. I think all of our money will go into infrastructure deployment.
Yeah, and to add what Sandeep was saying, if there's a location that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to connect, we have to look at alternative, technology, but we are still required to connect it. So that's a really key point. It doesn't really matter how much it costs to connect it. We are required to connect it if it is listed as an unserved or underserved. So when we go through this, subrecipient allocation process, we are going to, have the ISPs basically bid on certain areas. They'll submit applications. We have a good idea of what those passing costs are going to be, but also it's going to depend on the applications that come in. And if we don't have anybody bidding on a certain area, then ACA is going to have to come back in and do some negotiation, which may be different than what we originally thought. So, like I said, so when we do that simple math, when we get actually into the allocation process, that may change just based on current cost, ISP's willingness to go into certain areas, the types of technology we're able to use, and those businesses that can provide that. So there's just a lot that goes into this allocation process.
Trying to make it as complicated as possible, huh?
It's pretty complicated.
Very complicated, yeah. But it's at the same time, as I mentioned in ASU day before yesterday, that is one of the program which is defined really, really well, really outlined. It's complicated, but the NOFOs are really well written. All the information are there, and the direction is pretty clear.
Cool. Okay, any other questions for Karen or Sandy? Going once, going twice. So Sandeep, I know you have to leave us, but thank you very much for being here this morning. And again, to both you and Karen, you guys are doing a yeoman's job. I know it's a huge amount of work, and so I really appreciate all the work you guys have done and helped to bring an extra millions of dollars into the state. And so really thank you all for your work.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Steve.
You bet, Sandeep. Thank you. Okay, so moving on. So actually, I want to do this because she has to leave also. So Michelle, are you still online?
I am still here.
There she is. So I've also asked Michelle Simon down here in Pima County. They have been doing a great job in creating and addressing the issues of digital equity and so forth. And so I've asked Michelle, I know she's got to leave pretty soon also, but I asked her to do a quickie, and then maybe we'll do a follow-up at a future meeting of the work that they've been doing and where they're heading. So with that, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Michelle Simon. Currently, I play two roles in the county. I am the Deputy Director of Support Services for the Pima County Public Library, and I have just been appointed the Director of the newly formed Office of Digital Inclusion for Pima County. This all comes as a result of the Connect Pima effort, which I did just put the link to Connect Pima in the chat, so that you guys can go to the website and see all kinds of good information, as well as the fact that we received a middle mile grant award from NTIA for it is a $43.3 million project, and more than $30 million was given to us by the feds. There are people on this call that were integral to making that happen. Thank you very much. And we have a lot of great things that are coming forward in our community right now. And part of that is our talking to our municipalities about the grant itself, which is us building a 134-mile fiber optic ring around the urban core of Pima County. It will go north to Marana, Oro Valley, as far east out into Vail, south into Sahuarita, and west out to 3 Points and back up Sandario Road there. This will allow us to kind of level the playing field and create some competition with internet service providers in Pima County and reach some areas of the county where maybe providers right now will not build to because it is cost prohibitive. And then along with that, we will be working on digital literacy initiatives and focusing on helping to make sure that people have access to tools and resources that they need to be able to engage with the internet. In the very near future, we'll be doing listening sessions throughout the community. And we're changing a bit the structure. Connect Pima, the task force that has participated with Connect Pima, and many of you are on that task force, will become like a community advisory board. We will still have the various committees, but it will be a slightly different function than what it is right now. So I look forward to really talking with everybody. Right now, I am working with our team here in Pima County to get the information related to anchor institutions for Pima County that Sandeep was just talking about, and pulling that information together. But I also want to share a link for all of you. You can see some of the information that we have pulled together for Pima County already. This is an ArcGIS dashboard for Pima County. The data is down to the census block group, and it is using the American Community Survey as well as FCC maps. And then we have a layer, you will see, if you look at it, there's a layer that says middle mile grant infrastructure. That is there because it has to do with our grant. And so if you look at that particular layer, it does show community anchor institutions, the proposed ring, the proposed fiber optic ring in Pima County, and the buffer. So basically the 25 miles outside of that ring that will potentially be served as a result of this project. So if anybody has any questions, you're always, free to reach out, or and I'm happy to provide additional details at a meeting in the future, Steve.
So Michelle, I've told you, I think you guys have done a great job. And which I think is going to be a good model for other counties here in the state, is that it really has been focused not just on broadband, but the whole digital inclusion focus. And I think that's really a good model because we've done a lot of stuff. We've had broadband action teams who have done grant planning and got funding for broadband, but haven't really addressed the digital inclusion piece. So it's very timely for you guys to be a good example of what counties around the state can do in terms of, again, both broadband and digital inclusion.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. I just want to say that everything that we're doing here in the county wouldn't have come to pass if it hadn't have been for groups like yours here, helping and participating and adding information to make all of our efforts come to fruition. So I appreciate everything that you all are doing and how we can come together and make it better, not only for Pima County, but so that we can be good neighbors, helping Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, Graham Greenlee, Yuma, right? Everything that we touch, Pinal County. How can we work together to really make this better for Arizona?
So, and again, it's so timely, Michelle, with all the funding we just heard about from the Sandeep and the feds and so forth. So again, just to congratulate you and the work that you did. You've been a great leader in pulling this all together. So just appreciate that.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, I'm going to run away and I will talk to you all soon. But thank you very much.
Good. Thanks. Thanks for being here this morning.
You got it.
Michelle.
Bye.
So I wanted to back up here for a second and give me just one moment. We had a couple of new folks that I think joined us this morning. So I wanted to give them a moment to introduce themselves. So Dave, we were talking earlier, Dave Kasner. So Dave, you want to just introduce yourself and give us just a little bit of who you guys are and what you're doing here in Arizona?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. First, thank you for having me. I honestly didn't understand what I was really walking into. I had breakfast with a buddy of mine earlier this week, and we were talking about fiber broadband and fiber network builds. And he's like, you need to get involved with these guys. So I just really appreciate you with just warm welcomes and everything else. But we're a company. My company's name is True North. I'm the VP of the company. And we have been involved in some major fiber builds for wireless carriers, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. We built major networks out of Los Angeles, out of Dallas, out of Salt Lake City. And within those builds, we were kind of the GC essentially of those builds. And we quickly realized that this is something that we should probably get involved in, and looking into getting into being ISPs and everything else. It's wonderful that you guys exist. I think I'm here more for learning purposes right now, but I would love to be able to share the information that I have and the contacts that I have and be able to help everybody connect, I guess no pun intended, but connect where we need to connect. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to having some robust conversations about things. Fiber builds and rural builds are something we really want to get into, and looking forward to getting to meet everybody.
Good. Well, welcome for participation. Anybody have any question for Dave? Going once, going twice.
Thanks, everybody.
Apparently not. And we have anybody else? Melanie Nelson?
Yes, hi.
So you want to introduce yourself quickly, please?
Sure, yes. Melanie Nelson, I'm with Horrocks. We have been involved in the BEAD program in the state of Utah. We do have, we are on the list to work with the ACA, so looking forward to see what happens there. And we do a lot of fiber design, middle mile projects, and work with ADOT. So just kind of excited to see and be part of hearing what's going on. So that's
great. Well, welcome. Any questions for Melanie? Is there anybody I've missed that's new today? Going once, going twice. Okay, so so just a quickie about the updates today. So Mala and Aaron are not here today. They are heading to Tuba City for their excuse me, for the telemedicine project that they're working on. So unfortunately, they won't be joining us today. So any other announcements that people want to make today? Leslie, if I can put you on the spot for just a minute, I know you, of course, did a presentation for us recently. Just any updates on, the work that you guys are doing with the schools regarding cybersecurity?
Thank you, sir. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm using my government computer and sometimes it doesn't play nice with the firewalls.
Okay.
Yeah, we're making progress. We just for everybody's situational awareness, I'm with the Arizona National Guard Cyber Joint Task Force, and we do vulnerability assessments for all echelons of state government, to include Department of Administration, counties, cities, towns. And back in May, we signed an agreement with the Arizona Department of Education to do vulnerability assessments for all K-12 public and charter schools. So we did get quite a bit of interest at the beginning, but of course it was over the summer, so there were a lot of IT projects going on. So some of the schools had asked us to push back to the fall. So we have started doing some vulnerability assessments for some of the school districts. One of the things that we discovered early on is that some of the smaller school districts do not have a VPN solution. And so that required us to actually go out on site to be able to do our vulnerability assessment. This is a situation that I brought up to the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and to the Arizona Department of Education. So far, I don't know that they've come up with a solution for that particular issue, but not having a VPN solution, of course, means that we cannot remotely access in a safe manner the environment in order to do a vulnerability assessment. So I'm not sure if that's something that you, Mr. Peters, is something that you can give any suggestions or ideas on, but that was something that we identified early on. One of the customers we were working with suggested that they could just drop their firewall and we could come in and do the vulnerability assessment. And of course, then we become the vulnerability. So our goal is not to do that, but to be able to come in and assess internally what the network looks like. So overall, when we did go down and evaluate that district, they had a very good network. Very few vulnerabilities were identified. Also a very, very small district. So pluses and minuses, I guess. But that's it in a nutshell, sir. Any questions or concerns?
So Leslie, do these smaller school districts actually have an IT department and a CIO, or is it the football coach who's also the IT director?
At the one of the schools that we went to, they did have someone who ran their IT department, been there for quite a few years, and basically built up the whole department. But he was the only individual running all of the IT. So it's a small school district. He was able to do that, and it worked out. I do know of other small school districts where IT becomes that line in the job announcement that says other duties as assigned. So I know that there's been some IT directors that are HR that know how to plug in a computer, so they become in charge of IT. So it's something that we can help with through the Department of Homeland, and we refer people to the Arizona Department of Education to get more specific assistance, but we can at least give you an idea of what your environment looks like, and then point you to where you can go to get some additional assistance.
So I want to mention that that the work that Leslie is doing, that they are collaborating with Arizona Homeland Security, and between them and others, that they're doing a really great job in working with the Department of Education and local school districts to provide some decent cybersecurity. So we really appreciate, Leslie, the work that you guys are doing. It's so needed and so important at this point.
Thank you. There was a report that recently came out on cybersecurity that identified K-12 as a primary target for threat actors. And I recently attended a cybersecurity summit in Washington, D.C., in which Arizona was identified as being one of the states that is really trying to get after this cybersecurity issue and doing a lot of great things with the collaboration between the Department of Homeland and the National Guard. That's a lot of states don't know how to leverage their National Guard to help them. And in fact, one state that we talked to, when I explained that we were helping out K-12, they were very impressed, and we've had some follow-on conversations with that state on what they have done and what we can do to kind of mimic what they have done, but additionally what we're doing and what they can do to mimic what we're doing. So there's a lot of conversations that are happening at the national level. But just for people on this call, just so you know, we are, as a state, really getting after this question in ways that other states have not begun to try to address.
Great. And we've been in communication, as you know, with Ryan at Homeland Security. And, you know, again, I think you guys are doing a really great job and a great resource for the state and for the school districts and libraries, I should say. In addition, Molly's not here to talk about libraries today, but certainly that's her bailiwick, which we all certainly agree and support.
Thank you.
You bet. So thank you, Leslie. Appreciate you dropping in today. So Nubia, you want to give us an update on what's happening with you guys and with Chicanos por la Causa and work you guys are doing, please?
Hi, yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Nubia. I'm with Chicanos por la Causa. We are, as I think I mentioned it last week, we have a big fall festival happening in Mora, New Mexico, and that's a big project, but we're super excited to help that community down there. We're heading out next week, and we'll be doing outreach and hopefully some enrollments. So that's getting coordinated. We've also have our office hours started. Well, actually this month, every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, we've opened our office for what we call office hours. So anybody in the community who knows about us, as we're doing outreach, spreading the word, they're welcome. We have a designated time for them. And if they're not able to make it, then we work with them individually to meet them where they're at, just to make that outreach and enrollment possible. So it's been a pretty busy month because of the Hispanic Heritage Month. So we've been out in the community in different outreach events, but we're really excited to get the ACP word out.
So Nubia, can you talk about, and I don't know that it really even falls into your bailiwick, but as you know, we've always talked about what support is available after we get people signed up. Is that something that you guys are dealing with? And do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that's actually a great point. So our idea or our plan was to have the ISPs, we would invite as many as we could, and whoever could show up, that would be great. To either the events, whatever events we were hosting as a program. At this time, it's mainly just different programs and organizations reaching out for outreach, but also during office hours. The idea is to invite those ISPs, so when those enrollments are happening and they're eligible, they can connect on the spot. They can talk to a representative of their choice of whatever company it is that they want to get them enrolled into ACP. We have been learning as we go and just troubleshooting with different just barriers. And it seems like, for example, we've already encountered this 3 times prior to September 15th. Some of those enrollments, we would sign them up for ACP, but they had to sign up with the ISP again. So we reached out individually to say, hey, like, what's happening? This community members have questions, what's going on, and try to problem solve. And it seems that once they're in line with the national verifier, that then they no longer have to sign up twice. So that wasn't something we knew. Again, we're learning as we go and trying to problem solve and really work out something. So it really becomes easy for the community to not only enroll, but also get that benefit applied.
So, Anubia, one of the other questions I have, I've started working on outlining a plan for cybersecurity for the state, and we'll be bringing folks together to really work on that plan. So what if anything, are you seeing, or what are we doing in terms of cybersecurity at this point? Or should we be doing? You know, we sign people up. Do we need to help them figure out how they deal with cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we don't, we're not doing that type of education right now. We don't have the funding for that, but in the past, the small funding that CPLC has gone, we've been able to provide classes to the community, and one of those classes is cybersecurity. And I think a lot of it just is really educating the community about, one, what it is and how is it important in their daily, kind of their day-to-day. So I guess it's just lack of awareness of what cybersecurity is, and how it's, it can really make a big difference, just because we're all so connected, and there's multiple devices, and there's just a lot of things just coming through every day.
And I know that I should be careful here all the time, that we should be talking about cyber safety and security. So I know people remind me all the time that we have to do that there really is a difference between cyber safety and cyber security, where we're trying to protect networks and hardware, but there's also the ability for people to use the internet safely. So with that, actually, Cindy, do you have anything that you'd like to share? Thank you, Nubia. So Cindy Hogan,
Yeah, for
you have
sure.
anything you want to share? Okay.
I'm not sure where she went, Steve, but we do have an AIDN meeting today.
Right.
If any, yeah, at noon. And we're just basically formulating and going over some feedback letters for the published plan to go to ACA. But yeah, and Digital Inclusion Week, just seeing what everybody's got on their schedules and what they're doing. I know we've asked for a proclamation from both the governor and the mayor of Phoenix. Common Sense has asked for a proclamation for Digital Inclusion Week. They both have said they would do that. So that's great. And if anybody wants any information about like how to promote what you're doing for Digital Inclusion Week, or even, last minute ways to amplify your work in the space, feel free to let me know, and I can share that from it. I have a lot of stuff from NDIA. I know you didn't call on me, but
I'm sorry. So Elena, do you want to also talk about the article that you wrote and one that you shared with me? And I will share it with everybody.
Yeah. So I had written an op-ed for the Arizona Republic about well, two things. One, the difficulty that we have in Arizona around broadband because of our rural and tribal lands. And then also, the need for Congress to refund ACP. So it was kind of a combined plea. And it ran in the Arizona Republic on Monday, online and in print. And then it just also ran in all of the independent newspapers online. So if anybody wants to see it, I have the link. Though I think you need to be a subscriber. So I also have a PDF if anybody wants to read it.
Okay, thank you. So any other updates that anybody has? Going once, going twice? Then I believe that we are done for today. I am going to, this is not recording. Is it recording? So I'm going to stop recording, and anybody wants to stay online and kibitz for a little bit, and if not, we're done for today. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Mhm. Oh, there we go.